Hello guys and welcome back to this new episode. Today we're gonna be here with a new episode entirely dedicated to cats and their history. This is then gonna be a history of cats according to their own perspective, right? So we're gonna talk about the history of cats. Let's start. The first cat that we're gonna talk about is the famous cat of Schroedinger, and this was a cat that was half alive and half dead. This is a famous thought experiment where Schroedinger tried to prove that there's a 50% chance that the cat is alive and 50% chance that the cat is dead into the box, and so through that thought experiment he proved one of the main principles of quantum mechanics. That is to say that a photon behaves as matter as much as a wave. We're talking about 1925 and 1926. But there is later on another famous cat that is important for us to discuss today, which is Beppa. And Beppa is another philosophical cat, so to speak. Beppa was indeed the cat used by a huge philosopher of our time, Kripke, who was investigating at the time the idea of counterfactuality and was trying to discern between what we can what we can categorize as essential qualities and accidental qualities of a cat. And therefore we have Beppa indeed. And of course her tail, which could be could be existent or not existent according to the level of radiation or the radiation themselves that Beppa has suffered. Yet again, there's a third cat that here we want to mention, and that cat is known as Acoustic Kitty. Acoustic Kitty is then the name of this operation elaborated by the CIA, where they thought of ways in which they could spy on Russian people of interest. So we're around the Cold War, the 60s, the great superpowers that are trying to get some dirt on each other. So the CIA spent $20,000 to carry out this operation. Ears of cats are endowed with cochlea, and so they're able to discern different sounds. And so the idea was to put like some type of bag so they could record through batteries. Very simple. They could record everything was being said. So they started thinking about all the complications, all of what could happen or could have happened. The cat is an animal that is very well known for being very independent, for eating a lot, for rubbing itself against the legs of everybody. So they thought about all of that. So what they did, this is the CIA, so basically they hired a vet, then they trained the cat. All was ready to start, and then they sent the cat into the street, and a car hit the poor cat, and unfortunately the cat died immediately, so the operation completely vanished. The first attempt turned out to be a total failure. The second attempt was definitely so much better, and so what happened was that they actually sent the cat. He managed to cross the street safely, so it was safe and sound, got to the neighborhood and got into the actual houses where there were people of interest, relevant Russian people, we should say, of interest at that time for the CIA, and it wasn't so much of a success. In other words, even though there are pages and pages of a document of the CIA on this operation, in reality we do know that the batteries at the time were extremely expensive, and the cat actually did whatever he wanted to do, so when rubbed itself, started purring and whatnot, and therefore they didn't get out of this operation what they had hoped for. The Operation Acoustic Kitty therefore was abandoned in 1967 for good, and so they never used cats, to our knowledge, cats again for espionage, and therefore this type of operation was completely abandoned again. But if you think that I've finished, I'm done talking about famous cats, you're completely wrong. I have a last one, and I promise you it's going to be the last one. The last cat we are going to discuss today is Unsinkable Sam. So this is a cat that was saved from a ship that was sunk during the Second World War, and he managed to basically stay alive although the ship sank, and was nicknamed as Unsinkable Sam. Then he was transported on 2 other different ships, and one of these 2 also sank again, and he managed to stay alive, and that is why we have this nickname Unsinkable Sam. So this cat that actually had magical life, the magical 7 or 9 lives that cats have usually. But why did I want to discuss the story of Unsinkable Sam? The explanation is easy and a little bit weird. If you are owners of cats like myself, then you are very familiar with the sort of hatred that cats feel when they have to have a bath and they have to be cleaned with water, right? At least, let's say, honestly speaking, they're not very happy to do that. And paradoxically, the history of cats is deeply intertwined and connected with water, and specifically with trips on water on ships. So the old cat is a cat that is overall very, very similar to our modern cat. At the time, it was just a little bit more taller, I guess, and also it was way more muscly than what it is right now, the tamed cat that we have in our households. I have to say that cats are already well known in the Neolithic era, in the area of the Middle East, and they are again taller, more muscly, and the other thing is they are typically striped colored cats. So in 1983, there were some researchers who discovered a jawbone in the area of the in the Middle East area, and from that they basically traced back the history of cats. So now we have a bunch of issues on all the cats, and we also know that there hasn't been any relevant or extremely relevant genetic alteration or modification, so they pretty much resemble, the old cats resembled the modern cats that we see nowadays. With that being said, it's also important to notice that cats were present again in the Neolithic era. And they were present, and they had major functions such that of protecting from lizards the crops, and so that was one role that they used to have. So I mentioned lizards, but also snakes and other animals that of course could bother and could annoy man or crops. So men started coexisting with cats, and this type of coexistence became fruitful for both parties. And so men decided to not actually to tame, but more to bring with them in their migrations cats along, and therefore we have cats navigating on ships. So the first migration that interests us cats and cats and men, of course, is that goes from Africa to the Anatolic region. And so we're talking about from Africa to the area that corresponds nowadays to Turkey. And then from that, of course, cats are introduced in Asia. But cats are found first in ancient Egypt. In ancient Egypt, we found over 300,000 mummies of cats, and so we can deduce that cats were extremely important for Egyptians and had a place in their religion. We found mummifications, and we found statues, and we were able to deduce that also for people who would kill cats, there was a death penalty. And so specifically black cats were considered like deities for or by the Egyptians. And then we have the Romans, and so ancient Romans bring along with themselves towards India the Fs libica, which is the breed of cat that was widespread at the time, and then Fs libica, Felix sylvestris libica, gets mixed with Ornata, which is another breed of cats. So we know that ancient Egyptians would bring along cats, Romans would do the same, Africans would do the same, and so they would bring with themselves cats all over the place. We know that different types of breeds start to intertwine and to mingle, let's put it that way. And so we know that cats were somewhat very common and very much present in daily life. We also know that the cats started actually to be tamed only in the 60s, and that is when a company decided to invent, so to speak, the cat litter box, and therefore men and women willing to do so could buy a cat and keep the cat in the house. So it's time for us to discuss the philosophy of cats. We know there has been somebody, a philosopher, Gray, who has described their morals by individuating a trait that is very qualifying for cats. Cats are independent. They have ancestrally mechanisms that allow them to adjust and adapt to whatever situation, and they keep those mechanisms to protect themselves. For instance, that of sharpening their claws, alive by practicing them daily, but they pretty much are tamed, domesticated, and they can fairly well coexist with human beings without issues. Yet they remain very independent, which is something that assures their possibility of survival and their shot at survival, regardless of whether or not they actually have an owner. And also we finally have an explanation of why, for instance, cats purr, and that is to say that they actually emit vibrations that are in the range of 25 to 50 hertz, and we know that that vibration is particularly important because it allows them to regenerate the tissues and their muscles, and so that is actually an extraordinary thing. We don't know exactly the reason, like the superficial reasons, because as we all owners owners of cats know they can purr for a million of different reasons, but we do know that by doing that they regenerate their own tissue, and therefore that allows them, of course, to always stay active, young, alive. No, most of the times they just pretend to be dead just to catch some animals, some birds or something like that. Anyway, so with this last piece of information, we say goodbye, and we thank you for having tolerated us in this show of today. And of course, if you like the video, please click on the like, subscribe to the channel, let us know your thoughts, and we'll talk some more about a different topic next time. Bye!